I wouldn't have said so, no. Not really. But no, I don't get the feeling that she's wildly optimistic about life. A pragmatist, I think.
A single sealed envelope arrived at Buckingham Palace like something far heavier than paper should ever feel. It slid across polished wood, quiet, almost polite, yet it carried the kind of weight that shifts centuries. No one spoke as it moved through hands trained to hide emotion, and inside that silence, something irreversible had already begun to unfold. What began as a routine Commonwealth briefing suddenly collapsed into something far more severe when King Charles confirmed Princess Anne as the sole representative for the upcoming summit, and official act that immediately removed Queen Camilla from one of the most visible diplomatic stages of the crown. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. No one in that palace corridor understood how quickly silence could turn into impact, but it already had. Charles knew every person in that room understood the weight of what was coming. The Commonwealth Summit itself, the structured gathering of nations, tied through shared history and diplomatic alignment under the crown, was not just another engagement. It was the monarchy's global face in motion. For months, Charles had been shaping a restructured representation strategy behind closed doors, tightening control over who stood where, and more importantly, who spoke for the institution when the world was watching. The decision now sitting in motion was not spontaneous. It was built in layers of private calculation that no one outside the inner circle fully saw forming. Camilla received the confirmation indirectly, not from the monarch himself, but through an aide whose hesitation said more than the letter ever could. She did not interrupt. She did not question. She simply took the document, her fingers tightening once before stilling completely. The aide left faster than protocol required, as if distance could soften consequence. At the same time, Anne was summoned into a private audience where Charles placed the responsibility directly in her hands, without ceremony, without excess words, just a transfer of duty that felt heavier than any crown declaration. Anne listened, then gave a single nod, not of excitement, but of full understanding of institutional weight being shifted onto her shoulders. Camilla did not move when the corridor outside her private wing fell into unusual stillness. Staff felt it first, the absence of movement, the sudden absence of requests, the way conversation simply stopped, as if the air itself had been adjusted. A senior courtier, watching from a distance, quietly questioned whether this marked a permanent shift in royal representation power or just a temporary recalibration of roles. Yet even that question felt uncertain, because nothing about this silence felt temporary. It felt final in a way no one wanted to acknowledge. The closed door changed everything when Charles later stood in a private study, placing the signed document down without speaking for nearly a full minute. The document itself confirmed Anne's exclusive role for the Commonwealth Summit, effectively formalizing her position as the monarchy's singular representative voice for the event. The term sole representative authority, meaning the exclusive power to act and speak on behalf of the crown in a defined diplomatic setting, now belonged entirely to her for this occasion. Anne stood across from him, still, composed, and when she nodded once, it was not acceptance of opportunity, but recognition of burden transferred without return. Camilla sat alone in her private sitting room, reading the confirmation twice as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less final. They did not. She placed it face down on the table without a word, her expression unchanged, but her stillness heavier than anything she had shown in public. In that moment, the emotional center of the palace shifted not loudly, not visibly, but completely. But the decision did not emerge from nowhere, and what led to this moment is far more damaging than anyone inside the palace is ready to admit. Behind every royal decision lies a fragile triangle of trust, duty, and legacy, and in this moment, that triangle is breaking in real time, inside rooms where silence carries more authority than words. Charles feels it before anyone speaks. The shift is already in the air, heavy and irreversible. The monarchy depends on balance between image and duty, but now that balance is tilting in a way no one is openly naming, and at the center of it stands Camilla on one side, Anne on the other, and the king holding the line that is beginning to fracture. Charles knows he has spent years trying to balance ceremonial modernization, the effort to present the monarchy as adaptable and relevant to the modern world, with traditional royal discipline, the strict system of duty, hierarchy, and unbroken continuity that defines how authority flows inside the crown. That balance is now under pressure. Camilla has long acted as a stabilizing public presence in global royal engagements, a familiar face in diplomatic settings, where consistency matters as much as symbolism. But Anne, with her uncompromising sense of duty, represents something colder, sharper, and more institutional, admired by staff, respected by governments, but never softened for public comfort. That contrast is no longer theoretical. It is now operational. Camilla does not say it out loud, but she feels her influence narrowing in recent months of planning discussions. Meetings that once carried her voice now pause slightly longer before acknowledging it. A senior aide quietly notices Charles consulting Anne more frequently than any other royal figure, not as a courtesy, but as a final reference point. Even early summit preparation stages begin shifting, private discussions forming, where Camilla is no longer present, not officially excluded, but gradually absent in ways that cannot be ignored. The structure is changing without announcement, and that is what makes it unsettling. Charles sits through a private dinner briefing, where conversation flows carefully around Commonwealth representation, the diplomatic framework that connects nations under shared historical ties to the crown. The atmosphere tightens when Camilla begins outlining her position, but before she can complete her thought, Charles turns directly to Anne for final judgment. The interruption is not loud, not dramatic, but it is absolute. Camilla stops mid-sentence, realizing the space she once occupied in decision-making is no longer automatic. It is conditional. Anne does not react outwardly, but she remains calm and visibly still when a courtier refers to her as the confirmed voice of the crown for the summit. The phrase lands heavily because it signals more than participation, it signals authority, being concentrated. In that moment, Anne understands the weight being placed on her role without needing further explanation. She does not seek validation. She simply absorbs the responsibility as if it was always meant to return to her. Yet Charles knows this shift did not begin in this room. It started long before, in quieter disagreements and unspoken hesitations that built over time until they became unavoidable. A hidden disagreement over Commonwealth representation, who speaks, who leads, who carries the crown's image forward, has been forming behind palace doors without public acknowledgement. And now, that disagreement is no longer hidden. It is active, and it is pulling every relationship inside the palace toward consequences no one can soften. During a private dinner briefing, Camilla notices her speaking time interrupted, mid-sentence, as Charles turns directly to Anne for final judgment, and in that single break in flow, something structural collapses without noise. The conversation continues, but not on her terms. Not anymore. Yet this shift did not begin here. It was triggered by a single moment no one in the palace can now undo. Long before the official confirmation, the monarchy fractured in a single private evening, meeting that no one inside Windsor would ever speak about openly again. The room felt sealed off from time itself, as if every word inside it would decide the future shape of the crown. Charles felt it the moment he entered. Nothing about this gathering carried the calm of routine strategy. Something had already shifted beneath the surface of loyalty, and it was waiting to break. Inside that closed Windsor chamber, a disagreement over Commonwealth messaging escalated into something far more serious than protocol. It became a question of trust, control, and who the monarchy would allow to speak for itself when the world was watching. And in that room, one irreversible incident pushed Charles toward a decision that would eventually elevate Anne and sideline Camilla entirely. Charles knew every person in that room, understood the weight of what was coming. A confidential strategic meeting, meaning a closed-door royal discussion, where only senior, decision-makers shape national representation had been called, to finalize Commonwealth summit representation. The summit itself was not just ceremonial. It was the monarchy's most visible diplomatic platform, where image becomes influence and every word carries political consequence. Internal disagreements had already been growing for weeks over messaging control and ceremonial visibility, but now those disagreements were no longer quiet suggestions. They were collisions, waiting for impact. Camilla did not hesitate when she spoke. She strongly argued for a joint representation model, her voice steady but firm, challenging the idea of placing authority into a single figure. Camilla had always believed shared presence strengthened stability, especially in global engagements where continuity mattered as much as symbolism. But Anne responded immediately, rejecting the approach with calm precision, insisting that constitutional discipline, the strict framework of rules and hierarchy guiding royal authority, could not bend to preference or convenience. Her tone carried no emotion, only structure, and that structure made the argument harder to move. Charles stayed silent, but he saw everything. He watched Camilla lean forward slightly, pushing her case again, and he saw Anne remain still, refusing to yield even an inch. Then Camilla delivered the remark that changed the temperature of the room completely. She questioned what she called loyal hierarchy, a phrase that cut deeper than intended, suggesting that loyalty itself was being reinterpreted inside the institution. The air tightened instantly. Anne did not react outwardly, but the silence that followed her expression was sharper than any reply. Camilla placed her notes down mid-argument. The sound was soft, but it landed like closure. She spoke one line after it, calm, controlled, but unmistakably final in tone, and Anne stood in silence, unmoving, as if the room itself had shifted around her. No one spoke for a moment that felt longer than it should have. Then Charles raised his hand, not in anger, but in absolute decision, and the meeting ended without resolution, only consequence. Charles remained seated long after everyone left. The door closed behind them, with a quiet finality that seemed louder than the entire conversation. He did not speak. He did not call them back. He simply stared at the space where the argument had unfolded, as if trying to locate the exact moment trust had started to fracture beyond repair. And in that silence, the decision that would later confirm Anne's singular role and quietly sideline Camilla had already begun to take shape. From that night forward, nothing in the palace could return to what it was. Camilla felt the shift the moment she stepped into the corridor room. The air was too controlled, too precise, as if even sound had been told to stay quiet. Charles stood near the far end, unreadable, while Anne was already there beside him still, composed, waiting without urgency. The confrontation arrives not in public, but in a sealed corridor room where silence carries more weight than words. Camilla had been called under the pretext of final preparations for the Commonwealth summit, a diplomatic gathering where the monarchy presents its unified voice to the world. But nothing about this moment felt like preparation anymore. What stood in front of her felt like conclusion. What followed was not a discussion, but a quiet dismantling of expectation, authority, and assumed roles within the crown. Charles knew every second of silence was doing more damage than speech. Final confirmation meeting, the last formal stage before an official royal announcement, becomes binding. Meant decisions were supposed to be shared, explained, and aligned under palace protocol, the internal rule that ensures all senior royals are consulted before public representation changes are made. That protocol was already bending in ways no one was openly naming. Camilla looked at both of them and immediately felt it. She was no longer entering a discussion. She was entering a decision that had already been made without her. Camilla broke first, but not emotionally, structurally. Her voice cut through the stillness as she demanded clarity on her reduced role in representation planning, the question carrying both authority and disbelief. She had served in global engagements for years, shaping public continuity for the monarchy, and now she was being pushed into silence without explanation. Anne responded without hesitation. Her words were controlled, precise, final. She reinforced her confirmed authority without raising her voice once, making it clear that her position was no longer negotiable, no longer shared. Anne did not need volume. Her stillness carried absolute authority, the kind that did not invite reply. Charles avoided Camilla's gaze as the exchange tightened. He did not interrupt. He did not correct. He simply stood between two opposing forces and chose silence over contradiction. That silence was not neutral. It was alignment. Camilla saw it instantly. The realization landed, not as anger, but as clarity. This was no longer a conversation open to influence. It was already finalized. And worse, it was already accepted by the one person who could have changed it. Camilla asked a direct question, sharper now, aimed at the only authority she believed still remained fluid. Charles slowly removed his glasses and placed them on the table without answering. The gesture was small, almost gentle, but it carried finality heavier than any spoken order. No correction followed. No reassurance came. Only silence, stretched long enough to become a verdict. Camilla felt the room close in, not physically, but emotionally. She understood what no announcement had yet said out loud. Her position inside this structure was no longer expanding. It was contracting. Anne did not move. She did not speak, but her stillness filled the space completely, as if the outcome had already been anchored long before Camilla walked in. And with that silence, the real structure of power inside the monarchy begins to shift permanently. Behind palace doors, decisions are never made in isolation. They are built through pressure, history, and the silent pull of influence that no one ever fully sees until it is too late. The announcement still hangs in the air, but now attention shifts away from the message and toward the man who delivered it without explanation. Charles remains quiet, yet that silence is no longer being read as uncertainty. It feels controlled, directed, almost deliberate, and as that realization settles inside the palace, one truth becomes unavoidable. The balance between Camilla and Anne is no longer equal in any sense that matters. Charles knows every layer of internal restructuring he has been shaping is now converging at once. Ceremonial representation authority, the structured control over who officially speaks and it appears for the monarchy at global events, is no longer being treated as shared tradition. It is becoming centralized. The Commonwealth positioning itself demands a single diplomatic face, one voice that carries the crown's message without contradiction or dilution. That pressure has been building quietly for months, hidden beneath formal discussions and carefully worded briefings. Now, it is no longer hidden. It is operational. Camilla feels it before anyone says it. Her role, once positioned as stabilizing and visible in international engagements, is now being viewed through a different lens, politically sensitive, increasingly weighed against Anne's reputation for institutional discipline. Camilla does not confront it publicly, but she notices what others pretend is invisible. Invitations to strategic briefings arrive later than before. Some arrive without detail. Some do not arrive at all. There is no formal removal, no explanation, only absence. And absence, inside the palace, is never neutral. Anne, meanwhile, is being discussed differently in corridors, where names are usually handled carefully. She is increasingly described quietly, in private conversations, as the stabilizing figure for international representation, not chosen loudly, not announced, but reinforced through repetition. Her authority feels less assigned and more recognized, as if the institution itself is aligning around her presence rather than deciding it. And that shift changes everything without needing permission. A private advisory report circulates through senior channels, written in precise institutional language, but unmistakable in direction. It strongly favors Anne's exclusive leadership at the Commonwealth Summit, citing clarity, continuity, and diplomatic consistency. No emotional language, no ambiguity, just recommendation shaped as inevitability. It does not accuse Camilla, it simply removes her from necessity. Camilla notices the change in rhythm before she ever sees the document. Her inclusion in strategic briefings shrinks again, then again, until her absence no longer feels accidental. It feels structured, a recalibration happening without announcement. And in that silence, the real weight of what is forming becomes harder to ignore. Charles reads the advisory report alone. The room does not move with him. It holds still as he scans each line, understanding exactly what is being asked, without it ever needing to be stated. He folds it once, carefully, and places it into a sealed drawer without calling anyone, without asking for clarification, without offering resistance. The decision is not declared in that moment, but it is accepted. A senior aide watches his expression shift only slightly, just enough to confirm that the recommendation has landed exactly where it was intended. Charles dismisses the entire briefing team moments later, not with anger, but with finality. No follow-up questions are asked. No alternative paths are opened. The structure has already begun to lock into place. What follows is not debate, it is execution. The announcement does not explode, it settles. Slowly, quietly, and then it begins to reshape everything inside the palace in ways no one can fully control once they start noticing it. Charles does not repeat it. He does not need to. The structure has already shifted, and now everyone inside those walls is forced to live inside the consequences rather than the explanation. Camilla's absence from summit coordination becomes impossible to ignore in every meeting she no longer attends, while Anne steps into roles that once required shared authority without hesitation. The shift is not declared. It is experienced in real time by those closest to the crown, like a system quietly rewriting itself from within. Charles understands exactly what has changed because he authorized the internal adjustment of representation records, the official documents that define who holds speaking and diplomatic authority for the monarchy. Those documents now list Anne as sole representative authority for Commonwealth preparation, a formal designation meaning she alone carries final voice in that specific international engagement framework. No ceremony accompanied it. No public statement followed it. It simply appeared in the structure of record and in the palace. What is written often becomes more powerful than what is spoken. Camilla feels the adjustment before she ever sees it explained. Internal palace communication begins shifting silently. Emails shortened, briefings redirected, schedules adjusted without commentary. She withdraws from scheduled engagements tied directly to Commonwealth preparation, not with protest, but with quiet removal. Each cancellation carries its own weight because it is not replaced. It is simply left empty. And in a place built on visibility, emptiness is always noticed faster than confrontation. Anne, meanwhile, does not expand her role loudly, but she carries it as if it was always waiting for her. Yet that expansion brings scrutiny with it. Courtiers observe her increased involvement in planning discussions, noting not only her presence, but her consistency. Some describe it as stability, others feel it as pressure. Anne does not respond to either interpretation. She simply continues signing documents, reading briefings, and stepping into responsibilities that no longer require shared approval. The weight grows, but her expression does not change. Camilla stops mid-walk in a corridor when she sees it. Her name has been removed from a briefing list pinned to the palace board, a simple sheet of structured planning updates that once always included her without question. She does not speak. She does not ask anyone nearby. She just stands there for a moment too long, as if waiting for the document to correct itself. It does not. She turns away without reaction, but every step away feels heavier than the last. Anne signs a document calmly in another wing of the palace, while a courtier hesitates at the door, unsure whether to interrupt or wait. The hesitation lasts longer than it should, because even those delivering paperwork now sense the shift in authority. Anne finishes her signature, sets the pen down, and only then acknowledges the presence waiting outside. No urgency, no tension, just control that no longer needs to announce itself. Courtiers begin noticing something else, too. An emotional distance forming inside royal household interactions. Conversations shorten, meetings lose informal language. Even familiar exchanges feel edited, as if everyone is careful not to step into a space that is no longer socially safe. And in that silence, Camilla cancels a private meeting minutes after reviewing updated schedules that no longer place her at the center of Commonwealth planning. A private audience request is submitted by Camilla shortly after, formally asking for direct discussion with Charles, but the request does not move forward. It is delayed indefinitely, without explanation, held in procedural silence that carries more meaning than rejection ever could. And with every silent adjustment, the palace edges closer to a deeper turning point. Camilla felt the shift before a single word was spoken. The corridor outside the private chamber carried a different weight, as if even the walls understood what was about to be said. The real shift happens away from ceremony and protocol, in a quiet private exchange between Charles and Camilla that strips away every layer of public image and leaves only consequence. No aides, no advisors, just two people standing in a space where authority no longer hides behind formality, confronting the reality of a decision already set in motion and what it has done to trust within the royal household. Camilla entered with controlled calm, but her request was immediate. She asked for direct clarification from Charles regarding her future role, her voice steady but carrying the exhaustion of uncertainty that had been building for weeks. Charles understood why she was here without needing explanation. He had already formalized Anne's exclusive representation authority, the official designation that grants one royal sole responsibility for a defined diplomatic engagement, removing shared representation and concentrating authority in a single figure. That decision was no longer theory. It was already written into the structure of the crown's planning. Camilla did not raise her voice. That was never her way. Instead, she expressed quiet disappointment, not just over exclusion from the Commonwealth summit, but over what it meant beneath the surface: relevance, trust, and position inside a system she had worked to stabilize. The Commonwealth summit itself, the monarchy's most visible international gathering where representation carries symbolic global weight, was now moving forward without her voice at its center. That absence felt heavier than any formal announcement could explain. Charles tried to answer, but the struggle was visible before any sentence formed. He was not defending a theory anymore. He was defending a completed decision. The explanation he could have given weeks earlier no longer fit the moment they were standing in. He paused more than once, choosing words that could not fully soften what had already been locked into place. And in that hesitation, something deeper became visible between them. Emotional distance. Not loud, not dramatic, just unmistakable. Camilla noticed it instantly. The pauses, the careful phrasing, the way certainty no longer belonged to either of them in that room. Charles was not uncertain about the decision itself. He was aware that explaining it now carried no real power to change its outcome. That realization created a silence between them that felt heavier than disagreement. It felt final in a way neither of them said out loud. Anne, far away from that room, remained unaware of the private exchange unfolding in real time. She continued through her responsibilities without interruption, unaware that the emotional structure around her role was fracturing elsewhere in the palace. Her authority was expanding in silence, while the cost of that expansion was being felt somewhere she could not see. Camilla stepped back slightly, as if measuring the space one last time. Her hand found the back of a nearby chair, resting there for only a moment. She did not hold it. She did not anchor herself to it. Her fingers withdrew slowly, as if even that contact had become unnecessary. Then she turned away without speaking. Camilla left the room without waiting for a response, not because there was nothing left to say, but because the answer had already been given in everything that was not said. Charles remained standing long after she left, looking at the closed door as if it still contained the conversation that never fully reached completion. He did not call her back. He did not move immediately. He simply stood there, holding the weight of a decision that could no longer be reversed by language alone. What happens next is no longer private, it becomes global. The announcement spreads beyond palace walls, like a fault line breaking open under pressure. It does not arrive gently. It detonates across every screen, every newsroom, every quiet corner, where people still believe royal decisions unfold slowly. Within minutes, headlines shift, interrupting scheduled programming without warning. Anchors lose their rhythm mid-sentence. Graphics change before explanations catch up. The monarchy, usually distant and controlled, is suddenly inside every living room at once. And yet, even in the chaos, one truth becomes instantly clear. Something inside the crown has been fundamentally rearranged. Charles feels the ripple long before he sees the coverage. Media confirmation arrives that Anne has been assigned exclusive Commonwealth representation role, meaning she alone will carry the monarchy's diplomatic voice at the summit, without shared delegation or secondary representation. The phrase sounds procedural, but its meaning lands heavily across institutions that understand how rare such concentration of authority is. Royal correspondents immediately frame it as a major internal restructuring, not just a scheduling change, but a redefinition of who speaks for the crown when history is watching. Camilla's name becomes the center of quiet speculation within hours, not through official statements, but through absence. Her reduced visibility in representation planning becomes the story people ask about without being told to. Commentators repeat the same unanswered question in different forms: why her role changed, and why no clarification is coming from the palace. That silence becomes its own form of communication, and in public interpretation, silence always invites assumption. Inside the institution, palace communication avoids direct clarification entirely. No correction is issued. No expansion is offered. The structure holds firm, but the lack of explanation increases pressure outside it. What is meant to be stability begins to feel like concealment, and that perception spreads faster than any official language could control. The monarchy does not respond, and in not responding, it allows interpretation to take over. A televised expert panel calls it the most significant royal adjustment in years. During a live broadcast, a phrase that instantly anchors the moment in historical framing. Analysts speak carefully, but their tone carries certainty. This is not routine. This is structural. They discuss hierarchy, trust, and representation as if reading changes already written into the institution's future. The discussion does not settle uncertainty, it amplifies it. Social media reaction intensifies almost immediately. Loyalty debates form within hours. Some defend tradition, others question internal balance, and many focus on what this means for visible hierarchy inside the royal household. The conversation is not calm, it is fragmented, emotional, and relentless. Every interpretation competes for dominance, and none are confirmed or denied. Outside Buckingham Palace, the defining public moment takes shape. A live broadcaster stands at the gates, reading the breaking headline into a microphone as crowds gather behind barriers. The words are repeated again and again, as if repetition might make them clearer. People react audibly: gasps, murmurs, disbelief folding into noise. Cameras capture faces more than statements, because expression becomes the only language left when official clarity is absent. A royal watcher in the crowd lowers their phone slowly, as if the act itself requires acceptance. They do not look at the broadcaster. They do not look at the palace. They simply say, almost to no one, "This changes everything." But the final meaning of this moment is not in the reaction, it is in what it permanently alters. In the end, this was not simply a reshuffle of representation. It was a defining statement about trust, authority, and the direction of the modern monarchy. Charles stood at the center of it all, fully aware that the confirmation of Anne as the sole representative for the Commonwealth summit had already moved beyond decision and into legacy. No hesitation remained in the structure he had chosen, only consequence. By doing this, he did more than assign a role. He redrew the emotional map of his inner circle, placing duty above sentiment and structure, above shared symbolism, in a way that could no longer be quietly reversed. Charles knew what this moment represented in his leadership style. The Commonwealth decision was no longer about a single event. It had become a marker of how authority would now be distributed within the crown, a landmark shift where clarity replaced shared interpretation. The monarchy had always relied on layered representation, but now that layering was thinning, replaced by direct lines of responsibility. And in that shift, Anne's position did not just grow, it solidified into something unmistakably institutional. Anne did not react publicly to the weight placed on her. She never needed to. Her role as the monarchy's most trusted institutional representative was no longer being discussed, it was being practiced in real time. Meetings flowed through her decisions with increasing consistency. Her authority felt less assigned and more inevitable, as if the structure itself had been waiting for her to occupy it fully. And in that quiet certainty, the institution found something it had been missing: absolute clarity. Camilla's reduced role did not arrive with confrontation, it arrived with absence. And that absence marked a permanent emotional shift within the royal household. Not loud, not dramatic, but irreversible in its effect. The space she once occupied in planning, presence, and symbolic balance no longer held the same weight. Conversations adjusted around her rather than through her, and in that subtle shift, something personal inside the institution quietly changed shape. Charles understood the cost of that change, even if he did not announce it. The internal balance between tradition and modern representation was now visibly restructured. Tradition still existed, still held its dignity, but modern representation demanded precision, and precision demanded fewer voices carrying clearer authority. That tension did not disappear, it settled. And settling, inside the monarchy, often meant permanence. Palace insiders began to recognize what this truly was: not a temporary adjustment, but a defining precedent for future decisions. If one summit could be structured this way, others could follow. The hierarchy inside the institution was no longer assumed. It was now explicitly arranged. Publicly, it appeared calm. Privately, it had been rewritten. The monarchy's internal hierarchy was now aligned in a way that left little room for ambiguity. Roles were defined, authority was concentrated, influence was no longer distributed through tradition alone, but through deliberate selection. And in that clarity, the institution found stability but also finality. The institution settled into a new equilibrium, one where each figure understood exactly where they stood, and more importantly, where they did not. No confusion remained, no uncertainty lingered, only structure. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.